From Connecticut to Miami, the Make More Money podcast this week is Brian Cuban, Mark Cuban's brother. Now, one thing that me and Mark Cuban have in common, besides the fact that me and Mark definitely are very lucky, definitely got into software business, definitely didn't take a no for an answer, and definitely we both dreamed of owning a sports team, although he got one before I did. Brian Cuban was the person I reached out to because he reminded me a lot of my older brother. My older brother, those who don't know or are just listening to this, I lost my brother to drugs, fentanyl. He was fighting some demons, and I didn't know how to help him at the time. Now, I do believe that the Lord is in control of everything. However, you always feel like if you ever lost a family member, you feel like you've done so much and you could do much. Well, this is a very somber episode because we actually go through Brian Cuban and his struggles, and he actually talks about a new book he's writing on and everything. I'm going to put my 3 takeaways from the episode at the end. We'll also include one of our sponsors in it, our new sponsor that we have in the middle. So please thank you for all the sponsors that have entrusted us with this new season. And if you would like to sponsor or even be on the Make More Money podcast, click the link below, submit the form where we already are taking applications. And for the next season, we're going to be shooting it right down here in the Move Miami in Miami podcast. You're down here. The second thing I'll say is if you want to get in touch with me, okay, we're doing Connect. Connect is, it's a minute to connect. You have a minute to connect. Follow me on Connect. Jeff J. Cunningham, I'm Connect. That is definitely one of the things that in 2025, I made a goal to get one of my men that has been a huge impact to Change Life Consulting, our business. On this podcast, we'd flow some people to Connect. So check out Connect, check out my link if you want to ask me a question down there. And without further ado, sit back and listen to Recovering the World with Brian Cuban on the Make More Money podcast.
You're amazing. I've done a lot of interviews, just, a little feedback. You're a great interviewer too.
Never lose that magic, Jeff. Although we talk money, we talk connections and everything else we have here. And I'm actually nervous again, just like Elena Cardone, to have Brian Cuban on, brother of Mark Cuban. But also his story is very inspiring to me. I stumbled across his story shortly after my older brother Jay passed away, and I remember reading about that. And I remember being mad actually for a time that, someone has a life and I couldn't save my brother. And then I realized through my journey, if I can share the stories to inspire somebody else with someone else's story and give them almost an activist or a magnitude to it, they can. He wrote a book called, what's the book called, Brian?
The Addicted Lawyer, Tales of the Bars, Booze, Blow, and Redemption.
So that's what we're going to talk about right here. So that was my little awkward introduction. For people who don't know of you, could you give a 60, 90-second recap of what you do?
I am a lawyer by trade, born and raised in Pittsburgh. I have 2 brothers. My older brother, Mark, people know Shark Tank and the Dallas Mavericks. I have a younger brother, Jeff. We all live walking distance to each other here in Dallas. My mom still lives in the house we grew up in Pittsburgh. I am in long-term recovery. I just had 13 years in long-term recovery from alcohol, cocaine, and an eating disorder. Yes, guys do get eating disorders. And now I've written 2 books. I'm working on my 3rd. And I no longer practice law. My mission now is to change one life at a time through compassion, connection, resilience, and recovery.
Yeah, so and that's great. And so we'll talk about your book coming up as well too soon. But so what was the date? April 7th, right? That was the date?
April 8th, 2007.
So I did a little bit of homework on you. I actually watched, and if anybody doesn't know, you can just search Brian Cuban and see him speak many times about his whole journey. But we're going to kind of get into it. So I teach behavioral middle school kids. I see them bullied all the time. I was actually homeschooled myself because I was pulled out so I wouldn't be in that. That's how much my parents love me. My mom passed away when I was young. I still elected to be homeschooled. But when I went to go become a teacher and see the kids get bullied and wrecked on and everything like that, it was something that I almost became an activist right then and there to kind of inspire people and then flick. So kind of your growing up childhood, obviously you grew up with Mark and your brother Jeff. Talk about that, your earliest childhood memory of kind of growing up at your age.
I mean, my childhood memories, I didn't have a great childhood. I mean, we had my father, it wasn't as a result of being the there was a lot of there was a lot of verbal abuse with my mom, and in terms of fat shaming and things like that. But I obviously don't blame my mother for the things I went through. Parents don't cause eating disorders. Parents don't cause addiction. There is a difference between cause and correlation. So, but things that happen in the home can correlate with mental health issues later in life. It'll happen to some, it won't happen to others, right? That's why it's correlation. But so my earliest childhood memories are a lot of bullying, a lot of discord with my mom. But there were good ones, going to the amusement park with Mark. Mark taking me out to shovel driveways, my first business lessons. Mark taking me out to sell sugarless candy door to door, my first lesson in philanthropy from Mark at an early age. My younger brother Jeff was more of a jock, a wrestler. We didn't really run in the same circles because we were stair-stepped all 2.5 years apart or so.
All right.
So I have good memories with my brothers. I had a tough relationship with my mom. I had a wonderful relationship with my father. He was old school. Fought in the Pacific. Served in Korea. He and his older brother Marty. He was the middle of 3 boys, and he passed away a year and a half ago. He and his older brother Marty operated a trim shop, which is they put on convertible roofs and things like that, from the end of the Korean War until his brother passed away in '99. Wow. So he was very old school, and we lived in we were all a very middle class upbringing.
So yeah, the reason why I don't want to say, I knew obviously I was the entrepreneur kid. I making my brother and sister advertise for my lemonade stand when I was young, right? Trying to give them a job. The thing is, a lot of the listeners and students who follow me, they've been kind of had I don't think anybody has the perfect upbringing. I don't think the thing is a perfect family, right?
Oh,
I think
there's dysfunction everywhere.
Right, exactly. And I think the way I've learned it is the people you surround yourself with and what you kind of dictate and put in here can kind of portray what you have. So,
sure.
So obviously, when was, and not to get too much into it, but did you always want to become a lawyer when you were young? Where did that come
I had no concept of being a lawyer. The first time I thought about being a lawyer is when I wanted to be a police officer.
Okay.
Now that would have worked out well. I'd have been the first guy stealing the blow out of the evidence room. But I had no concept of being a lawyer. I was sitting in the placement office at Penn State. I went to Penn State undergrad in Pitt Law, looking through police officer jobs, and there were a couple guys in there talking about taking the law school admission test, and it suddenly occurred to me that I could hide for 3 more years in law school, because at that time I was already an alcoholic. I was binging and purging. I was bulimic. I was also exercise bulimic, which is obsessive compulsive exercise for the primary purpose of offsetting calories. So I was engaging in a lot of destructive behaviors as a survival method. And to me, it was just day-to-day survival. I heard these guys talking about going to law school, and it occurred to me that I could repeat these same survival behaviors, as destructive as they may be, and hide from the world for another 3 years. That's why I went to law school.
Wow, so that's crazy. And I do coaching and help people all the time in certain levels, and I talk about your why. You always have a why behind it. Your why was actually more to hide from something that you were already so submersed in, right? And
my why was to survive day to day. I had no concept of 3 years being a lawyer or what my life would look like in 3 years. I was just trying to get through a day. I was drinking. I was going to class drunk. I was drinking at night. I'd go to the state store that we have in Pennsylvania, and I'd buy a bottle of Jose Cuervo, wear cowboy boots, and put the bottle of Jose Cuervo in my cowboy boots, go out to the bars on my own and get drunk in an alley just to go up and drink, thinking, well, if I get drunk first, I'll be outgoing and I'll be social, because I was very shy. I didn't have a lot of friends. I had been bullied severely. I was a heavy kid in high school until I started this obsessive exercise, and I was bullied severely. I was actually physically assaulted over my weight in high school. And so I just was really kind of a loner who only knew his survival behaviors, the running, the binging and purging, and the drinking.
So, and I wanted to ask this because I've seen kids at the school where I used to teach that get bullied for their weight. If you could go back to a kid, and I used to pull them aside, and I've had different things that I'm definitely, I think everybody has insecurities that they don't sometimes talk about, but like I'll talk, I have my teeth all funny, I have spots in the back of my head, right? But the thing is what would you say to a kid that all of a sudden you see that he's getting bullied for his weight? Then, if you were back in the school, what would some of you tell him?
I would tell my younger self that this is not your fault. You are enough however you are, and let's figure out for you to figure out how you are enough so you can love yourself and not worry about what the other kids are thinking. And that's hard. You have to remember, back in those days, going viral, something happens to you, like I have physically assaulted, these kids tore my pants off.
I heard that story, yeah. Didn't your brother give you those pants too?
Yeah, they were a pair of shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants. This was the disco era, Saturday Night Fever. Mark says he taught disco. I don't know. He says he did, but
perfect Mark for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have a memory of that, but he did give me these pants, and this was when Saturday Night Fever was big, and these kids, and they were tight on me. But I didn't. Mark, I love my brother very much, and he loved me, and they were kind of a symbol that I was going to wear them, and they assaulted me, and it wasn't my fault. And I would go back and tell that little boy that this isn't your fault. And the problem is that I ended up dragging that angry little boy, that hurt little boy, around on a tire for my entire life without ever telling him that he was loved, it wasn't his fault, and he was enough.
Yeah. So, and that's the biggest message I want to, before you kind of go on and do something, you got to make sure you love yourself too. There's a kid I was actually just coaching comeback camp. I call him, his name's Cameron, and I call him comeback camp. Drinking problem. I used to go out in the thing, see him just pound shots with all the alcohol. And then I knew he was going back to do drugs. And I remember trying to get to him. It was right after I lost my brother. And whatever words, I just didn't know what to do. And then I got into self-growth and everything. So it's actually such a blessing that to see him now coming around. And now he's all invested in stocks, and he's sending me the stocks. So he has a new obsession, you know? It's great to see, though. It's good.
Yeah, and back in those days, it's different now. I acknowledge that. Back in those days, right before we didn't have the internet, going viral meant 15 kids in the lunchroom knew what had happened. But it didn't hurt any less. Because it's all relative to the time you're in. And so it was, and it became, my whole life became about soothing and healing that little boy in the most destructive of ways. I mean, through drinking, through cocaine, through anabolic steroid abuse. I have 2 trips to a psychiatric facility. I came near a suicide attempt in 2005, failed marriages. All of these things were circling around this little boy who never learned to love himself.
Which is why I think it's so people are not alone. You're not this happens everywhere nationwide. The reason why people do drugs or drink to a point is to forget a certain sort of pain they have in life. And I see it all the time. And I found out through my pain of, trying to help my brother, I found my purpose in life that, I can kind of inspire other people and go forward from that. And I think that's kind of even the same thing with you. Through all this pain that finally came full circle, went through everything here. Now you're an activist for the point to say, hey, this is where it's at on that. So, where did you when did you realize, hey, I got to be the voice to talk to people?
Okay, we interrupt this podcast to tell you about the Changing Lives Community Mastermind. Now, what exactly is that? So it's anybody who's done over 6 figures, okay, minimum or more in your business, okay, you get to apply to be a part of a mastermind to help position yourself, your business, and your offer with high-level entrepreneurs and access into my network. So many people want into my network, so we've done it. Instead of just, going on and bringing on a new 50K or 100K client, we decided to slash the price for a limited time if you apply for literally like a no-brainer offer, okay? Where you're in with me, you get to come to, the Philippines when I go out there. You get to come to Miami, one of the yacht masterminds. We're doing a private event tomorrow. As I'm recording this, will probably be out, but a private event tomorrow for one of my clients that people get access to. Just get access to me and events like that. It's not what you're thinking, so go click the link below for the mastermind or DM me at Jeff the Entrepreneur Mastermind and we'll send it. You'll get on with one of our advisors. We'll see if it's the right for you because we're really giving this tight-knit community. After building out so many other 25K, 35K masterminds for other people, we now have our own mastermind right here in Miami. And also, we're going to be going to Italy, I think, in September. So a lot of cool things to look forward to, and I hope to have you a part of it.
It was more of a process. I began my sobriety. So my quote-unquote rock bottom, I prefer to call it recovery tipping point, was my second trip to a psychiatric facility, and I realized that I was going to die if there wouldn't be a third trip back. and I didn't want to lose my family. And not that they didn't keep loving me, but they had become frustrated, and families distance, right? And that doesn't mean they stop loving you, but they distance because they have their kids. Mark has his kids. My brother has his kids, and I wouldn't want to coked up me around them. And so I began my recovery in the rooms of 12-step, and a lot of therapy. I'm still in therapy today, and it was a gradual realization as I started to tell my story out loud with blogging, and that people started reaching out to me, and wow, okay, my words have an impact beyond healing me. There are people who are impacted that, and the common theme would be when people would reach out to me by email is, I felt so alone. Now I know I'm not. Yeah. Even as a man growing up, and I knew that I wasn't the only one in my brain, but in my gut and in my heart, I felt that I was going alone, going through these struggles. And I know that is not an uncommon feeling. It's a very common, almost universal feeling for people struggling with depression, addiction, whether it's alcohol, drugs, opioids, heroin. And so I would get emails from these people, and eating disorders as well, body image. I would get emails from these kids and teenagers and adults thanking me for telling my story. And so it was a progression into recovering out loud.
Yeah. So what would you say? Because so when you're in all that, and that's kind of it too. I'm kind of very loud about my story with my brother right away. I was like, I can't keep it in. I got to get it out of what happened, because if I did, I'd go insane. And but I remember being so depressed, so down, where I didn't want to feel anything. Right. Speak about, and I feel even now, present day, I'm trying to build a software company. I'm probably $12,000 invested on software that might not work. I'm doing entrepreneurial stuff. Thank you for this, because I feel so alone with this whole quarantine and COVID thing out right now, right? I'm in a better community of stuff, but I feel alone too sometimes. And I think my addiction now is energy drinks, which is probably the worst one to have, but it's not that great either. And everybody has, and that's what I try and tell people. If you're drinking anything or doing it for over 30 days, it's in control of you. You're not in control of it, But what's well, I didn't even know I was going with that. But what's the because sure, what were we just saying there? See, now I got all caught up there. I'm all with Brian Cuban here. I got all, dude. So here's the thing. I watched your Oxford thing about 3 years ago when you spoke to Oxford and telling your story. Yeah. And it's funny. I just watched it before you did this. And I watched it. I remember being like, man, he survived and my brother didn't. What could I have done? And being so in that feeling. I just watched it now at a totally different light, right? And I believe life happens to you. It doesn't happen for you. So the fact to see you go on and actually be able to share this, I was like, he's got to be on the Make More Money podcast, because it's more than just making money. If you made a ton of money, right, being a lawyer, if you're not right with who you are, so anybody listening to this, if you're not right with who you are, you've got to get right with that before you make money. You're just going to blow it on. My older brother, when we were coaching him, I knew if we made a lot of money in this business together, he'd be blowing it on cocaine or something, and that's where we go down,
Yeah. What did Mark say not long ago? Money will make you happier, but it's not the core of happiness.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. I feel better now that I'm better with it and I'm in better vehicles, but the core of happiness, you got to be true with yourself. So, people talk to someone, talk to the depression moments, that alone feeling.
Well, here's the thing about depression. Depression and addiction often coexist. There's a strong correlation between the two. But I still deal with major depression right now. I take antidepressants every day. I see I tell a therapist with my therapist and my psychiatrist, and so I still have to work on not allowing myself to be triggered into major depressive episodes, and it's an everyday thing. But I've done pretty well. I have been suicidal outside of recovery, and it's been a long time since I've had one of those episodes. But I rely on my compassionate community. My wife, my pets are part of my compassionate community. My two brothers, my mother, who and I referenced her earlier. We have a wonderful relationship. In case anyone was watching, anyone was wondering. My friends who I Skype with and who I talk with. So I have created a compassionate community that I can reach out to in isolation that keeps me engaged. And plus the other things that I'm working on as well to stay, so I don't just, so I don't fall into the hopelessness of purpose that can, that can easily be triggered while we go through this, right?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, because everybody's in isolation now. People hearing this probably come out next week, right? And if I don't keep my schedule full, I'll get down. And I'm a Jesus guy, right? There's no thing about it. But even me thinking, oh, if this is the end of the world, hopefully the Lord comes back and raptures us, that's almost kind of a fatalistic like belief in that same way. You know what I mean? So I just want to make sure I stay busy and productive, because I feel like white space on my calendar is the devil's workshop, you know?
Well, I think it's really important while we're in this kind of isolation to remind ourselves daily that we do have purpose in life, that we are loved, that a lot of what we think we feel may be projection in terms of, I can't call this person, I can't call that person because they're going through this, they have their kids, and they probably want to hear from you. And so I think it's important to fight through that projection that keeps us from reaching out to our compassionate community. So, and that's important for me. And I'm a lot older than you. For me, and this is something that I'm going to be talking about coming up, I went through a very dark period in recovery of, and I think this is common, the wasted years, the wasted life. All of the years I wasted that I could have been productive, that I could have been moving forward on drugs and alcohol. I just wasted it in a haze of drug and alcohol, just where my life stood still.
Yep.
And so just gone. But in recovery, I came to the realization that period brought me here talking to you. Yeah. There was purpose.
Yeah.
There was purpose. Do I have regret? Do I regret that path? Absolutely not. Do I regret some of the collateral damage that happened? Absolutely. The people I hurt? Absolutely. And I try to make amends for that moving forward by helping as many people as I can, by not falling backwards into old habits. So, but now, as a baby boomer, all of a sudden I'm in the realization of my mortality. And this is a common feeling, I think, that a lot of people experience, but especially baby boomers. Anecdotally, I'm saying, where wasn't I just your age, where I had my whole life in front of me, and now I'm on the cusp of a COVID high risk group? When did that happen?
I know.
And so now that circles back to almost a resentment that I'm being cheated out of years of my life.
Yeah.
So I have to be very careful about that. And that circles back to reminding myself that I have purpose in life, that I have people who love me, that I am working on things, that I do have value, that all of these things every day.
Well, I will say you have value right from here, even doing that. And you're not alone. The recovery years, so as soon as I found into self-growth, and the guy I mentioned before, Grant Cardone, who switched around for me and just started getting into business and study and everything, I had the same depression. I spent my 20s chasing Spanish girls who were challenges and problems, and drinking alcohol, spending God knows money just to try and be cool and fit in with the jock kid, because I was never the football player, right? You know the feeling. So I look back at all those things, and I regret all that. I was like, man, I wish I started this sooner. But, and also at the same time, I look at my dad right now, who is more in the thing of, I'm trying to get him on the new thing. And I know he looks at it like, man, and he looks back like, what could I have done? But I feel like we're in the time now. Like, this is important. You're in here now. I'm going to meet you on more things. Your message has power to it. That, like, no matter where you're at, if someone's sitting home and let's say right now they stumble across this and they have cocaine in the wall, just like you did when you were paranoid, right? They do. What would be your message to someone that's listening to this on the couch who's done some drugs before?
Before or not, or they're currently dealing with it?
Yeah, they're currently dealing with it. Let's say they're right in it too.
That if you want it, there are plenty of resources that you can create a recovery compassionate community if you want it. Not just if 12 steps not your thing. There are plenty of resources out there, and you're free to reach out to me, and I'll help you find them. I'm very entrenched in the recovery community. You have to want it, right? If your thing is, well, I'm doing blow recreationally, I'm fine. I mean, we have the stages of change. If that's what you want, I can't force anyone to decide you have to come to the self-realization of how it's impacting your life.
Yeah.
I know people who are out there doing blow, and they're telling me, Brian, not impacting my life at all.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what that means, but if that's how you feel, okay, right?
But there's a reason why people do whatever they do. All right. And I even feel that people do it because I know when my brother passed away, I saw one of the people, I used to work at a restaurant, who did blow. He would make more money and tip money because I knew he went and blew it away on that, right? And he'd stay closer in that. And he was at the funeral, and I just was almost just like, I knew the dude had pain in his life, and that's why he did it. It was his little thing, and I get that. But like my whole thing, when I hire people, I'm going to be a businessman, and I'm going to do it. I hire people. Hey, do you know of this guy here, Grant Cardone, because that guy helped me out. And if you don't think like that, then that, and you do drugs. Because my whole point is, once you start doing a drug, whether it's weed or anything, that it slows you down or keeps you from your full potential. That's just my belief, you know?
Well, I try not to be, yeah, I mean, as somebody who, and I just, one of the things I decided to do as part of my purpose is I went and became a recovery coach. I passed the Texas certification for being a recovery coach. And one of the things I've learned wearing that hat is to meet people where they are. Tell me what you want. Tell me how it's affecting your life. I do not judge anyone for drug use or on any level, whether it's weed. If you feel it's problematic in your life, whether it's your relationship, whether it's work, whether, however it's impacting your day-to-day, morning to night activities, then let's talk about it. But everyone has to come to that conclusion on their own. And anecdotally, here's what I find when it's a problem. It's there may be data to back this up, but I've talked to a lot of people, so there are a lot of anecdotes. People are trying to cover up. People are either consciously or unconsciously covering up past life trauma that they're not ready to deal with.
Yep, that's it, man. And that's what you're into. Your almost the whole addiction and capital. Is it not?
Sure. And now people may define trauma. Everyone defines trauma in their own way, right? We think of trauma, war, right? Trauma, war, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and I think all those things. But this pandemic in the isolation is trauma.
Yeah. 100%.
It is a traumatic event that can trigger different people different ways. And I think we need to come to grips with the fact that this is trauma. Now, again, trauma correlates. It's not cause, it's correlation. So some people may be doing fine. Some people may be not doing fine with this and are triggered. And I know people where this isolation has triggered them into a relapse, whether for drugs and alcohol, boom, boom, boom. I know people who are in recovery who are doing fine because they have the 12-step online now. They have this online. They have that online. So they're able to create that compassionate community, those connections the best they can to help stay centered. But it's going to affect different people different ways.
So and that is very true. So tell me about like how when you obviously went to Penn State just to be a lawyer to do all, to kind of just hide away. What was your, I call it almost a come to Jesus moment, but your come to moment when was it Mark who got you? Who got you? How did it get to the point where you got to the 12-step recovery appointment? When
that was April 8th, 2007, where my now wife was my girlfriend at the time, came home and found me passed out in bed, and she had no idea I was dealing with these things. And I had a drug and alcohol-induced blackout. And so she drove me down to the facility. We actually were going on 4 years of marriage, so she stood by me. And I found I had to rebuild the broken trust and find recovery, but I had to do it for me, right? Because your recovery has to be stronger than your environment. Wow. Because pandemics happen. People die. People do leave. Pets die. I lost my father a year and a half ago. We were very close, very traumatic. He lived across the street from me, literally. And so the recovery has to survive all of these environmental triggers. And so relationships won't always work out, but they can.
Yeah.
But so that was the standing in that parking lot for the second time of that facility, realizing that there wouldn't be a third trip, I'd be dead, and that my family had probably finally had enough. I decided that that was my tipping point. I decided that it was time to start getting honest with my psychiatrist, who I've been lying to for 2 years. Well, why would you lie to your psychiatrist? One reason: shame knows no hourly rate.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, man, you have so much wisdom. I'm taking notes here.
He suggested residential treatment, and I was still a little too ego-driven and proud to go into residential treatment. He then suggested 12-step, and the 12-step meetings were actually right next door to his office. And I was still, it was funny, I remember it like it was yesterday. I said, I can't go to 12-step. There are no lawyers in 12-step. I walked in there, and half of them were lawyers I knew. And I remember saying to him, I see them smoking out there. Secondhand smoke will kill you. Like, what?
Yeah.
I'm about to die from addiction, and I'm worried about secondhand smoke of the secondhand smokers. So there are always reasons to not recover.
Yeah, no.
But I did go, and I began my recovery journey, and it's been 13 years. April 8th of this year.
Now, what does that mean? The 13 years. So come back, Cam. Whenever I'm with him, he'll call out the day when he stopped drinking, or the day that something did it. And I never got that. I'm always just like, well, fall back, you just pick a new day, right? And you can tell there's something about, no, I'm not falling back. I'm not going back there. That's the day.
Well, one of the things I've learned in 12-step, I'm not a big fan of 12-step-ums. We have all these sayings and this.
Right, yeah.
I've never been a big fan of that. But there are life lessons that I learned in there. And one of them is, I think, a huge takeaway that anyone can take while we struggle in isolation is live one day at a time. Take your recovery one day at a time, because you don't know what tomorrow is going to happen. Be sober today. And there are different methods of recovery. My path is abstinence, and it had to be, because there was no such thing as one line of cocaine for me without a drink, and there was no such thing as one drink without many more drinks and another line of cocaine. So I wasn't a guy who could say recreational had no meaning to me if it might have meaning to other people.
Right.
It was full blown, right?
Yeah.
Cocaine was here, the cocaine is gone.
Yeah.
And so, but there are other paths besides abstinence. There's smart recovery, which is behavioral change. There is refuge recovery. There is Christian-based recovery, which is celebrate recovery, which is also 12-step. There is harm reduction, which is there's harm reduction based on alcohol, cutting back your drinking. And you say that, and the 12-steppers, oh, no, abstinence. I don't judge anyone's pathway.
Right. Yeah, I know that about you. Yeah.
What I look at is, how does your life look? Tell me how your life looks. If you're drinking 5 drinks a day and your life's a mess, and you think you can cut it back to a drink a day and your life is going to be great, okay, do that. Come back and tell me how that's working for you. And if it is, fine. If it's not, let's talk about why. And maybe you need to think about abstinence. People who struggle with opioid use disorder, we have medication-assisted therapy with Suboxone and methadone, and again, you have various schools of thought on that. But here's why I'm a big fan of all modes of recovery, and I don't judge. Yeah. What's the one prerequisite to recovery? Just the one. What do you think it is?
A decision.
Being alive.
Well, that's yeah. Wow.
I don't care what your mode is, just be alive. And if doing Suboxone or methadone keeps you alive, to hope maybe find another the path to scaling back, and you're able to function, stay alive, right? This is why I support needle exchanges. This is why needle exchange facilities, because you're not trading out one addiction for another. What addiction is obsessive compulsive drug seeking behavior in the face of known consequences. People are going to use their substance of choice. They're not, whether they exchange the needle or not. So I'm in favor of all the things that keep people alive.
And no, you said that totally right, because I always talk to somebody who's recovering, and I'm not in. My older brother, I used to help him out a lot. He's like, Jeff, you should become a recovery. You help me out so much with all the stuff you say. And I was like, Jeff, that's too much I can handle. I don't know where you've been enough, right? But the one thing I know is he's 6 feet under the ground. You're 6 feet above the ground. You're alive, and you have a gift to do whatever you can do.
As long as you're alive, you can recover.
Yeah, see?
If you use a if you use a if you know I don't want to get into too many hypotheticals,
Right.
but the goal. This is why I always have Narcan with me.
Yeah.
To reverse an overdose. I have it with me. I always carry it with me in my
Smart. I wish we had that with my brother. I've heard so many stories about people
because it reverses overdoses. So now the issue is, will they use heroin again? They may, but they are alive.
So let me ask you this. These are more of the questions. Who's someone in life now that you value their opinion in life?
My wife.
Yeah.
My two brothers. Those are the people I'm going to.
Yeah.
If I need an opinion. My sponsor in 12-step.
Yeah.
If it's recovery related. And so those are, and I get it, and that's my opinion core.
Right. Yeah.
Now, outside of that, there are a lot of people whose opinions I valued, but those are going to be more situational opinions.
No, that makes sense. No, I totally get that. Talk about talk about your wife a little bit. How Cher's staying with you. What's talk about like how that all worked out. Like how
it was difficult. We had just moved in together, maybe less than a year before, and it's funny. I at the point this was 2006, I want to say, and at the point when she moved in with me, I was struggling bad. I mean, and it was kind of. I was really just over the top, and it was awful. So much cocaine and so much alcohol, and I was out every night, and it was terrible. But I was able to hide it to the extent where she thought I was this respectable lawyer.
Right.
I remember she moved in with me, and one of my buddies who I partied with said, "Dude, how's that going to work?" And because she doesn't do this, you do what you do.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to him, "Jeff, now I'm going to stop. This will cause me to stop." So I was into the stages of change where I'm thinking about stopping, but that's not how addiction works, and it wasn't how it worked. So she went away for Easter weekend to see her family, and she came back, and I had gone out, and the next thing, and there was cocaine everywhere, there was alcohol everywhere. She's trying to figure out if she walked in the right house. I'm trying to figure out what lie I can tell to explain this Law and Order style orgy of evidence that I might not be the person she thought I was.
Wow.
And so all I could think of was the metaphorical run home to mama, and I asked her to take me back to the psychiatric hospital, and she didn't know I'd been there the first time.
Right.
So there were a lot of things to explain.
Yeah.
And she moved out, and I went into 12-step, and I began to rebuild my recovery. We lived separate lives for a little bit, but we stayed. She didn't officially break up.
Wow.
And as I found recovery, and for me, and my family, her, and the people close to me could see the change, things slowly, started to gel back together. But again, I had to do it for me.
Yeah.
Because if she decided to leave, I still had to recover.
Yeah.
So we had that, and then I remember it was maybe a week later or so. I went in and I walked across the street to my father, who, as I said, lived right across the street from me, and he knew nothing about any of this. I had hid all this from him. He was in his golden years. I didn't want to burden him, and my brothers didn't want to burden him. And I remember going over there, and Amanda had moved out. All I had were my dog and my cat. And I knocked on his door. I went and sat on his couch, and I just started crying, Jeff, crying and crying. He put his arm around me and said, "What's wrong?" And I started finally getting vulnerable with him and telling him about all these things that he had no idea. And know what he said, Jeff?
Yeah.
He said, and I still choke up about this, "I love you, Brian. Move in with me and we'll get through this together." So I was finally that little boy who wanted to tell his father all of his pain and shame, but was afraid of his father rejecting him, which wouldn't have happened. Yeah. And I was finally that little boy opening up to my father and getting the response I would have gotten decades before, and getting it as a 40-something-year-old man. And I moved in with him and shuttled back and forth with my place to take care of my pets for maybe a week to 10 days, and finally moved back into my place. And that was another cathartic moment and pivotal point in my recovery.
Now, where was your brother, the one we know of, Mark, then? Was he a billionaire by that time when this was going on, or did it sell?
Yes. When did he sell? Yeah, sure. Broadcast.com thing happened in 99 or 2000, sure.
Yeah, so that happened by then. Because it's funny, I used to code. I used to be the kid who used to code and be all weird into that stuff, right? Then I went to be the jock to fit in and do the whole thing. Now I'm back to coding with software. So Mark's story was detrimental to me when I heard it, and that's how I stumbled across you.
Not necessarily. Well, here I get asked. That's a great question, Jeff. I get asked about that a lot. And here's the skinny on that. Mark's international fame, his leap to international fame, didn't cause any of my issues.
Yeah, no.
I was struggling with all of these things long before he came onto the international scene, celebrity scene. But here's what happened, and this isn't Mark's fault. Mm-hmm. I had no identity of my own my entire life, right? I was trying to fill this hole and I didn't know who Brian Cuban was. So Brian Cuban was somebody who drank a lot. Brian Cuban was somebody who got huge on steroids, so he would be loved. So he would look in the mirror and love himself. And that didn't happen either. Brian Cuban did this, engaged in this behavior, that behavior. But Brian Cuban was never that little boy who was shy, who didn't have to be the life of the party, didn't have to be charismatic like my brother is. And that's okay. So when Mark struck it famous, all of a sudden, I could go out to bars, walk through the lines. People would put cocaine in my pocket. People would buy me drinks. I was able to date girls half my age, and those relationships always revolved around drugs. Yeah. And I suddenly realized, and again, this isn't Mark's fault, I can be Mark Cuban's brother, and I am now somebody. I am not Brian Cuban, but now I can gather in all of this narcissistic object choice with females and all of these different things and prop myself up to be this person I was not. So I didn't have to look. I could look in the mirror, albeit artificially, and see that instead of seeing this person that I just hated himself. Yeah. And so I became that. Yeah. And for a while, and I became, frankly, one of the biggest party douchebags on the Dallas scene. Yeah. And it was, looking back, it was just terrible. And because I was trying to be Mark Cuban's brother instead of just be me.
And well, no, it's proud to see you as Brian Cuban giving so much value. What's something that makes you sad or upset most in life now, going forward?
The people I hurt. I mean, looking back from a recovery standpoint, the people I hurt, my ex-wives that I lied to, just all the collateral damage I left along the way. That'll make me sad when I think about it. But I can't change history. I've tried to do the best I can to move forward, changing one life at a time if I can. That would probably be my biggest regret moving forward. I wouldn't say any of it makes me sad because it's not about sadness. It's about recovery. It's about reflection. Right. And it's about amends. How can I make amends in the best way possible to change a life? I'm Jewish, and there's a Jewish saying. It's called. It's more Kabbalistic. It's called Tikkun Olam. It's
I know my grandma was Jewish, so I'm very familiar with Jewish. I know all.
It's called changing the world. It means changing the world with acts of kindness.
How do you say that again?
Tikkun Olam. I hope I'm saying it right. My apologies to my Jewish friend.
My mortgage guy, he's Jewish. I'm surrounded by a lot of very strong
And
Jewish.
what it means is changing the world with acts of kindness. And so what I try to do moving forward to make amends for the damage I caused and the trail I left is to every day change the world with an act of kindness, whether it's talking to someone about recovery, helping someone who is in need, helping someone who is struggling. So I won't say I necessarily have sadness looking back. I mean, about the things that I've done, I have regret.
Right. I mean, but everybody does, man. Even people say they don't. Everybody, no matter what level of life you're at. So not only that, I was actually going to ask the follow-up question, what are you passionate about in life? But you kind of answered it right there, right?
Yeah, I'm passionate about helping people.
Yeah, which is awesome. That's why I wanted to bring you on. All right, so what's your current favorite thing to do right now?
Writing. I'm working writing. I mean, it's certainly more limited now in my house, right? One of the great things about recovery too is, from my standpoint, when I went into recovery, a lot of it was shrinking my world to this big, because you have to get rid of the bad influences. So your world kind of shrinks. So my world has shrunk, and I'm not necessarily uncomfortable in that. Although there is a big difference between solitude and forced isolation. So you have to deal with that. But and so I've just my writing. I just finished the first manuscript of my third book, a novel called The Ambulance Chaser. Every day I email or I Zoom with somebody who's struggling.
Yeah.
So people make appointments with me and reach out to me, and we have Zooms where they can talk about their struggle with me. I just do that. I mean, there's no charge, there's no nothing. They're just helping people, connection, compassion.
And that's what it's about. That's why I do this stuff too. Because right now, even though you said isolation, the whole world's isolated right now. So they don't have to reach out to someone. You're going to get lost in your head,
Sure. But we remember, and I kind of cringe, and I've said this too, I have to watch myself, that we're all in the same boat. We're not, okay? We all have different levels of privilege going through this.
Yeah.
Right? I feel very privileged to go through with a roof over my head, with food, with my pets, and there are a lot of people going through this in underserved and non-served communities who this is a major struggle, a major pressure. So I try to be very careful about being very self-aware that I have a privilege in how I am experiencing my isolation.
Now, one thing I do, and I'll do it with certain coaching things, is gratitude, right? Things I'm grateful every day, the fact that we can actually be here and have time. There's people who don't have it.
Let's be careful how we use that, because we are not all in the same boat.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right about that. And that's why you got to almost make the most, it's our diligence, to make the most out of the situation we have to give back, So, with that, what's one thing you wish you could change in the world right now? If you can go.
My nose itches, and I'm going to use good COVID protocol by using my shirt.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, all right, good. So, what's one thing you wish you could change in the world going forward?
I wish I could change the stigma of drug use, the stigma of addiction.
Yeah.
I wish I could suddenly get everyone who believes it's a moral failing and a choice to suddenly understand that it is not a moral failing, it's a disease.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's part of the reason I want to have you on, because a lot of people,
there's another layer to that. I wish I could get everyone who thinks abstinence is the only path to recovery to understand that there are many pathways to recovery, and to embrace everyone staying alive to find that recovery versus trying to impose what they believe the recovery should look like.
Yeah, which is where you've actually taught me and enlightened that to this group today, because I always knew that, but I think I was so passionate because of what happened to me with my brother that I just was kind of cold turkey about it. And you're 100% right about that. That as long as people are alive and breathing, you can then fight on.
Yeah, but also remember, and this addresses you a little bit, you only know what you know.
Yeah,
you only know what you know.
Yeah.
So I encourage people, to the extent they can, to not be thinking about what they knew and didn't know, because this is whether it's then or now, right? You only know what you know. Now I make it, because I'm in the space. I make it a point to always expand my knowledge base, because every time I learn a little bit more, that opens up a new path that I can help someone with. Wow, I didn't know that. Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, that's true. So I used to teach middle school, see all this stuff going on. I went to college for a little to become a teacher, to try and do that. And I saw a lot of the same correlations. When I did become a teacher, I have a big passion to change the education system. So kids are back there. What's one change you think we can make? And I know, you went to school and everything, and you went to Penn State of all things. But one thing we can make in the education system?
Mental health access. Absolutely, mental health access.
Yeah.
even today with all, I mean, it's a much different, let's use Penn State. It's a much different Penn State than when I went. There was, mental health access wasn't a thing, right? And so you were either in my day back at Penn State, you were either in 12-step if you happen to run across someone who was in there. Very few people recovered out loud back then. Yeah. Or you were in a hospital ward if you were bad enough, or you were not in recovery or doing it cold turkey. That's not the case today, but we still don't have the kind of mental health access we need on our college campuses, in our schools. There are mental health therapy deserts. Students can wait for a month to get a therapy appointment because there just isn't enough access. So that would be the one thing I would change.
So the school I was teaching at was a behavioral school, and each kid had a therapist, right? And they didn't want to go, but they always felt comfortable talking to me, so I used to go with them. And I used to see what it helped, Bill, for doing. And kids would have to tell me, and I was a mandated reporter, so I'd report certain things, and they hated me for it later. But like I saw the unveiling of certain things that was their pain, and we were able to find their purpose, and they were able to find their identity at a young job. So this was only because my school was so tight. There's millions of schools where they just pack a ton of kids in without that help, you know.
And it's a much different environment with younger kids because they're going to be manifesting their parents' view of stigma.
Yeah. That's true. And it's funny because the kids would actually do better in school where they could go back to a public school, but they wouldn't want to because they had...
If the parents are ashamed of mental health, odds are good that the child's going to be also.
But this is why I'm so passionate about this, because everybody has something going up on here. Everybody has data coming into it. That's why, like, I speak about the Grant Cardone guy, but whoever. With all the data I've put into my mind now, has made me become to now where I'm doing something that's better, right? Because
sure. I'm trying to introduce you to part of my compassionate community. My cat's back there, but she doesn't want to let me pick her up.
Yeah, it's huge to have that. All right, so
here you go. Say hello.
Oh, what's the cat's name?
This is Mimi.
Mimi, what up, Mimi? At least I have a scaredy cat running around here somewhere. I mean, that's so. Let's talk a little bit about your brother. Because people, I kind of went through all this thing. And Mark and everything. What's because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm kind of an extrovert brother, and I have a younger brother, and I'm trying to build up with me. What's something I could do that Mark did well to bring to kind of keep you included and bring you up?
Can you be more specific? And I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, here's the thing. I just want to be the best older brother to my brother, right? And you said he was someone you valued your opinion. You know, my older brother's not here anymore. So my life purpose, my brother Joshua's growth, he's on self-growth. He was on mindset and all that stuff that I said way before me. Like, I wouldn't be here without him.
So, you know what? At least once a week, pick up the phone and ask how you're doing and tell your brother you love him and let him know you're there for him. That's something my dad instilled in us.
Yeah. Which
is why Mark, Jeff, and I are close, and we live literally, and not metaphorically, walking distance to each other.
Oh, really? That's awesome. That's so cool. So what's some best money advice? This was the Make More Money show. We kind of went on this. I always want people to be true to themselves. Because you were a lawyer, you're making pretty good money back then, right?
Yeah, I blew it all on cocaine.
Yeah, but that's why. So maybe be careful where you spend your money.
Be careful where you spend. That's right. I mean, the best money advice I can give you is what Mark said, and I believe this, and I've learned this from when I was making a lot of money as a lawyer, is that if you were unhappy, if you were already unhappy, no amount of money in the world is going to fix that.
Yeah, that's true, man. It all starts here, and that's why I want to have you on, because we give money tips and everything to people, and I help people make money, but I make sure you're okay first. Because and
the core of unhappiness will correlate strongly with bad money decisions.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense, actually. So when you were young, when everything happened, did you know you would be here today, where you'd be exactly helping people out doing this?
No, I mean, when I was young, no. When I was, I mean, back then, I think growing up in Pittsburgh, I wanted to be Roberto Clemente, show you how old I am, and Willie Stargell. So I wanted to be a baseball player, and I was never an entrepreneur. Yeah. It's funny. I'll give you an anecdote with Mark. I guess it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Mark, what's the guy who rings all the bells? Kramer?
Yeah.
He does all the funny, rings all the bells. I guess Mark was on the Kramer show, whatever his name is, not the Seinfeld guy.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I forget his name, but yeah.
So somebody messaged me, emailed me, and said, "You know, your brother was very disrespectful to you. He's on the Kramer show," and said, and what I forget what it was, and it was something about whether your brothers are motivated by money the same way you are. And so I went back, and you can go find it out there. It's out there. And because I was kind of surprised because we rarely talk about each other. I mean, we would never say anything negative about each other publicly. We pick up the phone, right? You call your brother if there's
that's exactly. Yeah.
So I went back and looked at the interview, and what Mark said am I motivated by money in the same way he is? And he said no, and he's right.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I have never been an entrepreneurial guy. I hate sales. I absolutely hate sales. My wife's a legal recruiter. She said, "Come work for me." You kidding? People say no to you. I hate that.
Yeah.
I don't want people to be mean to me over the phone.
Yeah, dude, it's the rejection thing, and that's the thing. And I think rejection is definitely the toughest thing, even for an entrepreneur. Just some people have that entrepreneur tendency, like me and Mark have, where we just want to keep going no matter what and prove someone.
Well, I remember when Mark was talking to me about way back when, he said, "You get used to that. It's you just have to go through it."
That's what I said to my brother.
It becomes not a big thing, but. No, I am not a salesperson. I'm not in the classic sense. I mean, I work on my businesses and my speaking, which is obviously zilcho right now, my public speaking, because of what we're in.
Yeah.
That's a stress for me. I have the stress like job stress. And so he was right. I'm not.
Yeah.
We are different people.
Well, one thing about stress, as long as you get it, when someone told me that stress is okay because it shows that you care to do something, and so it does. I mean, you don't want to stress out too much, but at least you want to do your public speaking, so now you need something to do. So it's not the worst thing,
Well, I mean, I'm going to have to reinvent myself like everyone else because the public speaking field, at least the in-person public speaking field, is going to be a graveyard for the next year. I get paid to go into law firms, go to nonprofit events, recovery events, and keynote, and that's good.
Yeah, I know.
I have to figure it out like a lot of people.
And innovate, and all that stuff. So let me ask you this question: do you think people care or people don't care
about what?
In general, just do people
care?
Yeah. All right. Good.
People express it in different ways, but of course people care.
Good.
Everyone cares. We all have empathy. We all have the ability to empathize with everyone else. We don't always activate it in the way we should, and some people are better at it than others. And empathy, we're all born with it, but sometimes it's a skill as well to be taught. Obviously, Brene Brown has made a living off that. I mean, everyone cares.
Right. Well, the reason why I asked that is because a lot of the kids I used to coach back when I was a teacher, they didn't think anybody cared. They were getting bullied, picked on, they perceived on that, and that's why they didn't think that. So then they lived out the life thinking nobody cares, and your mind will find the people who don't care. And then you just and then it gets you in a dark world.
Absolutely. Confirmation bias can be difficult as a young boy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I really asked you that question to have, you've been through all this, but you even see that people do care,
Absolutely. This is why we create compassionate community. And this is why it's important for kids, even if they don't understand that term, to know who their compassionate community is. Teens, adults, everyone.
Yeah, and it's cool because even if you went out, I was out in the marketplace before trying to stay safe, but people with the mask on or doing elbow bumps, that's showing that they care. They care about human life. They don't want to get anybody hurt with this crazy disease going on, So for anybody not seeing that. All right, so now you've been through, quite a few different relationships. I'm in a business partnership with my software company, Mr. AC out in London, which is crazy, and he's great. But what's the best relationship advice you could give me? Maybe you're 4 years married, right?
Allow yourself to be vulnerable with your significant other.
Oh, I like that.
Your secrets damage.
Yeah, wow. That's true. That's
another 12-step saying, we're as sick as our secrets. That applies to relationships too.
Yeah, I've never really had maybe energy drinks. I want to do this 12-step thing. Can anybody do 12-step food? Because I feel like it would benefit anybody, no?
Sure. I mean, if you Google, there are people who try to put the 12 steps into all kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, anything self-growth that I can get better at, that I can download in, that if it benefited you, if it can benefit me one part of my life, then I think it's worth studying, because I just want to become a better version of myself. I used to have a big ego back when I was a quarterback, I'm not that anymore.
Again, I don't preach things like that because I believe everyone should find their own recovery path. Right. But I mean, sure, I know there's a lot of stuff out there about people who transpose the 12 steps as to life lessons.
Yeah, I'm gonna share you after this. I'm gonna share a video with Grant Cardone, the video that turned around for me, and I'd like to see your take on it later. All right, so what's something you're? I think we kind of know this one. What's something you're looking forward to next?
The publication of my novel.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing what the next incarnation of Brian Cuban, the public speaker, is.
Yeah,
and I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of world we look like coming out of this.
Yeah, I know, man. It'll be insane. I saw your brother speaking on it, saying the best, they brought him in, how we can stimulate the economy. I think he's in the news just recently. I don't watch too much of the news though, but
I stop because it's repetitive.
Yeah, it is. It's bad. Just stay safe and be positive. Do what we're doing, man. Get out there, put some positive stuff out there. So tell me the title of the book and what's it's going to be on.
The title of my novel is called The Ambulance Chaser.
Okay, that's right.
It's about a Pittsburgh lawyer who is accused of a horrible crime that occurred earlier in his life as a teenager, and he has to go on the run to find the one person that can prove his innocence.
Wow, that sounds good, man. That sounds like a movie right there, man. It's all books are made of them. We'll get into that. But what was your first book about? The one
Shattered Image was about my struggle with eating disorders and body image.
Yeah, so, and everybody can find that at Amazon.
They're both on Amazon. I think right now you have to buy them through third-party sellers because Amazon has stopped because of the pandemic.
Right, yeah.
They stopped ordering books from people.
Yeah.
But you can still get it. It's just it'll have to be through a third-party seller because they're not going directly to publishers right now to refresh stock.
Yeah, because one thing I coach people is no matter where you're at in life, if you're stuck in a certain part, go find someone who got out of it, study them,
I like the story. You can read about me trading in 2006. You can read about me trading Dallas championship tickets to my cocaine dealer.
No, and I have that in the notes, and I just take the conversation is how my interviews are, kind of just how they are.
Yeah, and then flushing them down the toilet twice.
So wait, tell that story really quick before we go out of here. So what happened with that?
Let me. Okay, I don't think I have anything else.
No, we're right on my time, sir. I have something right after this, but this is this story. So,
back in when the Mavs went to the 2006 finals against the Heat.
Yeah.
I was deep. This was that was June. So this was 8 months or so before I went in recovery, and so I got the bright idea that I could. Get some championship tickets, some nice seats from Mark, and trade them to my cocaine dealer for scalper prices in cocaine. So he showed up at my house. I gave him the tickets, and cocaine had long stopped giving me the feeling I was searching for at that point. I was really down at the bottom. But I was also very paranoid, so I ended up driving to a Home Depot, buying electrical faceplates outlets, a drill, and a saw, driving back to my house and creating these fake electrical outlets in all the closets in my house and breaking up the cocaine and hiding it behind all these fake electrical outlets. And I had gotten the idea from a Sky Mall magazine. Remember Sky Mall?
Of course. Yeah, I love Sky Mall. Yeah.
Where they had these little fake electrical outlets to put jewelry behind. Yeah. And of course, the mind of someone struggling with addiction, wow, I can hide my blow behind that.
Yeah.
And so, and then I got all paranoid again and I took it all out and I flushed it down the toilet. And so the next morning came, and as so often happens, with these things, I wake up and decided I was a major knucklehead for flushing all that down the toilet. And there was another game that night, so I got 2 more tickets and called my drug dealer again, and he came over again. I remember him saying, dude, you flushed out that all down the toilet? I remember him saying, dude, you did all that blow last night? I don't want to tell him I flushed it down the toilet, so yes, give me more. Okay. And so I went running up to my home office. I dumped it all out like I'm Scarface. I want to go right in my big cocaine mountain.
Yeah.
And I did some more, but again, just not getting it anymore, not getting that great high. And it was never about maybe I have a problem. It was always about maybe I need to change dealers or change from Grey Goose to Jack Daniels. And so I got all paranoid again and flushed it down the toilet again twice. 2 days in a row. The quote-unquote insanity of addiction.
No, I watched my older brother go through some of that, so I totally know what that was, and I know the stuff that wound up killing him. Some guy just put something in to make it a little stronger.
Actually, if any of your followers are on LinkedIn, I just posted a video of me talking about that on my LinkedIn page.
Yeah, no, good. So we'll check it out. Yeah, so that's the last question here. Where can people find more of you?
My website, www.briancuban.com, Brian with an I. I am very active on LinkedIn. I post a lot of content. Be Cuban on Twitter. And if you want to reach out to me, you're struggling, just Brian with an I at briancuban.com.
Good. And hey, I'll definitely keep you in my repertoire if people look for speakers going forward. This is why networking's huge, because you know people. When your book comes out, maybe we'll have you on again. We'll push that out because it sounds like a great story. And
hopefully I'll have a haircut by then.
Yeah, me and you both, hopefully, right? You actually look like my manager at, he's going to kill me for it. I work at a steakhouse at the night to keep me busy. But he has the same type of hairstyle as you right now. So
this is style. This is just hair laying on my head.
Yeah, it's a good style. It's a good look. Hey, Brian, thank you so much for your time. You have been amazing. I hope this touched anybody. Guys, also, just DM me I'm more active on Instagram because I guess it's the age thing or whatever. But I just started LinkedIn and connected me with this guy. I hope this brought Jeff the Entrepreneur on Instagram. Send me a message if you need anything, and I'll help you guys out if this touched you in any way. All right? Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the episode with Brian Cuban. 3 takeaways. And by the way, Brian, if you're watching this, man, I hope you're speaking career. I'm going to reach out back to him on LinkedIn. That's how I actually connected with him. And Brian Cuban and Mark Cuban, both these guys, they're brothers, but it reminds me of me and my brother. One of the biggest takeaways was, and you'll see at the end, that I actually asked him, like, no, you have time, share that story about it. And he talked about how he traded championship tickets for cocaine. And he talked about literally his whole process of beating everything. And it really just, the lesson in there was that, man, drugs suck, man. Like drugs and that thing that you'll actually do something like so many people pay $1,000 for. And it's just like, it still makes me mad that we have such a drug, like we don't focus on it as much. We'll focus more on, at the time we're focused on COVID more, when more people are dying of fentanyl or drug overdose, right? So maybe if I ever did run for office, that's something I would crack down on there in some way, just because it's so sad that it took my brother's life and almost took this guy's life too. The second thing is, man, people care. Okay, you see, I asked him that, do people care in it? There's a point where his wife now, but his girlfriend stuck with him as he was going through this, trying to lie through the whole drug stuff. He found a girl, married 4 years. I asked him what the best advice was, and he basically said, don't keep secrets, right? Like, be authentic, be where you're at then. And that's the biggest thing that's given me clarity, as I'm in Miami here and, looking to become a dad now and a father. I'm 39 years old now. I'm taking I'm looking back at these keys and writing them down, right? You'll see how I was writing them down in the episode. And then the third thing that was really telling for me that he said is, and it was in the beginning, you don't know what you don't know, right? I was so upset because of maybe my approach, and he came up with a loving heart like, hey, you don't know. And then the fourth bonus, that he said he was different, right? He wasn't the businessman, he was the speaker. He came out with the book, The Ambulance Chaser, had that book out. But hey, Brian, if you're listening to this, man, reach out to me, man. I know he's in Texas. I'm over here in Miami. Maybe we'll bring him back on again for episode 2 as well. Because I think it's so important to see that as well. Just certain people where they are and where they grow from. We were in the middle of a pandemic then. So thank you so much for watching the Make More Money podcast. Again, click apply if you know someone or you want to nominate someone to be on or you want to sponsor this episode. I appreciate it for all our sponsors, and I look forward to seeing you next week on the Make More Money podcast.